Okay.
Everyone, this is our last installment of the Fantastic Mr. Fox, chapters 17 and 18, and then it is the end of our story. We have Mrs. Donato here today to
Hi, everyone.
and we are so excited to see what happens. So we know we left off where they were about to start a feast because the foxes and badgers had gathered all of these food items from the farmers. So let's see what happens. The Great Feast, chapter 17. Back in the tunnel, they paused so that Mr. Fox could brick up the hole in the wall. He was humming to himself as he put the bricks back in place. I can still taste that glorious cider, he said. What an impudent fellow Rat is.
He has bad manners, Badger said. All rats have bad manners. I never met a polite rat yet. And he drinks too much, said Mr. Fox, putting the last brick in place. There we are. Now, home to the feast.
They grabbed their jars of cider and off they went. Mr. Fox was in front. The smallest fox came next and Badger last. Along the tunnel they flew, past the turning that led to Bunce's mighty storehouse, past Bogus's chicken house number 1, and then up the long home stretch towards the place where they knew Mrs. Fox would be waiting.
Keep it up, my darling, shouted Mr. Fox. We'll soon be there. Think what's waiting for us at the other end. And just think we're bringing home with us in those jars. That ought to cheer up poor Mrs. Fox. Mr. Fox sang a song as he ran. Home again swiftly I glide, back to my beautiful bride. She'll not feel so rotten as soon as she's gotten some cider inside her inside.
Then Badger joined in. Oh, poor Mrs. Badger, he cried. So hungry she very nearly died. But she'll not feel so hollow if only she'll swallow some cider inside her inside.
They were still singing as they rounded the final corner and burst in upon the most wonderful, amazing sight any of them had ever seen. The feast was just beginning. A large dining room had been hollowed out of the earth, and in the middle of it, seated around a huge table, were no less than 29 animals. They were Mrs. Fox and 3 small foxes, Mrs. Badger and 3 small badgers, Mole and Mrs. Mole and 4 small moles, Rabbit and Mrs. Rabbit and 5 small rabbits, Weasel and Mrs. Weasel and 6 small weasels.
The table was covered with chickens and ducks and geese and hams and bacon, and everyone was tucking into the lovely food. My darling, cried Mrs. Fox, jumping up and hugging Mr. Fox. We couldn't wait. Please forgive us.
Then she hugged the smallest fox of all, and Mrs. Badger hugged Badger, and everyone hugged everyone else. And amid the shouts of joy, the great jars of cider were placed upon the table, and Mr. Fox and Badger and the smallest fox sat down with the others. You must remember, no one had eaten a thing for several days. They were ravenous. So far, while there was no conversation at all, there was only the sound of crunching and chewing as the animals attacked the succulent food.
At last, Badger stood up. He raised his glass of cider and called out, "A toast!" I want you all to stand and drink a toast to our dear friend who has saved our lives to this day, Mr. Fox.
To Mr. Fox, they all shouted, standing up and raising their glasses. To Mr. Fox, long may he live. Then Mrs. Fox shyly got to her feet and said, I don't want to make a speech. I just want to say one thing, and this is it. My husband is a fantastic fox.
Everyone clapped and cheered. Then Mr. Fox himself stood up. I guess that's where they got the title from, what Mrs. Fox says. Oh, hold on. Oh, this delicious meal, he began. Then he stopped. In the silence that followed, he let fly a tremendous belch. There was a delicious meal, my friends, he went on, is by courtesy of Messrs. Bogus, Bunce, and Bean. More cheering and laughter. And I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have. He let fly another colossal belch.
Better out than in, said Badger. Thank you, said Mr. Fox, grinning hugely. But now, my friends, let us be serious. Let us think of tomorrow and the next day and the day after that. And if we got out, will we be hurt? Right? Right, they shouted.
We'll be hurt before we've gone a yard, said Badger. Exactly, said Mr. Fox. But who wants to go out anyway? Let me ask you that. We are all diggers, every one of us. We can't stand the outside. The outside is full of enemies. We only go out because we have to get food for our family. But now, my friends, we have an entirely new setup. We have a safe tunnel leading to 3 of the finest stores in the world.
We do indeed, said Badger. I've seen them. And you know what this means, said Mr. Fox. It means that none of us never, ever go out into the open again. There was a buzz of excitement around the table. I therefore invite you all, Mr. Fox went on, to stay here with me forever.
Forever? They cried. My goodness, how marvelous! And Rabbit said to Mrs. Rabbit, my dear, just think we're never going to be hurt again in our entire lives. We will make, said Mr. Fox, a little underground village with streets and houses on each side, separate houses for badgers and moles and rabbits and weasels and foxes, and every day I will go shopping for you all, and every day we will eat like kings.
The cheering that followed this speech went on for many minutes.
And there is the end of 17. So we must now move into chapter 18 to see what happens with Bogus, Bunce, and Bean. Chapter 18, Still Waiting.
Outside the fox's hole, Bogus and Bunce and Bean sat beside their tents with their weapons on their laps. It was beginning to rain. Water was trickling down the necks of the 3 men onto their shoes. He won't stay down there much longer now, Bogus said.
That brute must be famished, Bunce said. That's right, Bean said. He'll be making a dash for it any moment. Keep your weapons handy. And they sat there by the hole, waiting for the fox to come out.
As far as I know, they are still waiting.
And that's the end, everyone.
Oh, that is it. Okay.
After everybody, so I think it's a great time to go back and think about some of our main characters, look at their character traits. What are they like? And how do you know that? Thank you for reading with us. All right.
Bye-bye.
All right.